Welcome back everybody to Gambato Gaming. Today we are taking a look at part 2 of the Super Mario Sunshine official iceberg. Of course that's on icebergcharts.com and is by user. Today we're going to be taking a look at the last 3 layers of the iceberg, or the berg as I like to call them sometimes. This is where some of the more unknown stuff lies with Super Mario Sunshine. I want to give a quick note. I might get a few things wrong in this iceberg, a few details here and there. Please bear with me and feel free to correct me in the comments below. Let's go ahead and hop in with layer 6. Tramplin Stu. If you remember Tramplin Stu, we mentioned him in the first video because he was pretty prominently featured throughout the Space World 2001 trailer. This character is a form of the Stu enemy, but is probably the most unique in terms of looks and abilities. The Tramplin Stu is one of the largest enemies in the game, I think that's safe to say. Dude's looking like Shaq up there. How's the weather where you are? This thing would have definitely towered over Mario if it ended up in the final game. The Tramplin Stew is kind of present in the final game technically, but really only in file form. For some reason Tramplin Stew was cut and it's unknown as to really why. Probably something like the fact that this large enemy probably didn't fit into the smaller worlds that were presented in the final game. In the Space World trailer we could see them running around what looks like either Bianco Hills or the plaza itself. So it seems Tramplin Stew was to be used throughout the game, and it's likely as development continued into these levels, they realized Tramplin Stew might not have fit all that well. He was fairly developed though, as when spawned back into the game using hacks, we can see he has a full list of moves and animations. The main move Tramplin Stew does is a charge attack towards Mario. That may seem a little lame at first, but he can also actually act as a spawner for the other stews in the game. So yeah, Homie is basically a mobile spawner for these little guys. Can we zoom in on this? I noticed this, but look at the way these enemies are being spawned. Homie straight up shits them out. You know what, now that I think about it, that might be why they ended up removing him, because dude's got an anus. Dorokuri. In the first video we mentioned a similar character to the Dorokuri known as Swiping Stews, and this enemy is basically the same concept of a Swiping Stew, but without the flight. He's wingless. You know how I like my chicken wings, right? Wingless. Only the bones for me. Yeah, he was supposed to be a regular stew that stole Mario's hat, you know, but from the ground. He wasn't kept in the final game, but he can actually be found in the test level, where the impressive new hat-stealing tech could be tested. It appears these guys can bounce off of each other if there's more than one, but other than that, they mainly act as regular stews, just with their thief ability leveled all the way up. It's likely these guys were just replaced by the Swiping Stews, as 2 enemies with hat-stealing abilities would be, you know, too many, I think. The reason Yoshi dies in water. Yoshi was definitely downgraded in Super Mario Sunshine when compared to a game like Super Mario 64. Yeah, this was the first time we could ride Yoshi in a 3D Mario game, but he kind of fucking sucks in this game.
You suck. You, like, objectively, you're a piece of shit and you have shitty taste. I guarantee I could find 1,000 scientific reports to corroborate that. It's a fact. You suck.
Pretty much he's on a timer, and yeah, that can be reset by eating fruit. Honestly, by far his worst weakness is his weakness to water. Yeah, I heard if you even offer Yoshi a Dasani, he could disintegrate right there on the spot. So yeah, it's clear Yoshi cannot be taken into the water of Super Mario Sunshine, and considering this game has a lot of water in it, this becomes quite a hindrance. But when we think about past Mario games with Yoshi in it, he can clearly live and swim in the water, so what's the deal with these guys, huh? There's actually several theories online as to what's going on with these Signs aliens. Remember the movie Signs? That's Yoshi. Pretty dumb but fun theory on Reddit claims that these Yoshis are actually the enemies from Splatoon known as the Octolings. And man, there's quite a large jump you have to make to get to that point, but if you're looking for a laugh, I'd actually recommend reading it. The more accepted theory though is that these Yoshis aren't actually even real Yoshis to begin with, and they were actually made by Bowser Jr.'s paintbrush. We've seen the powers that this paintbrush kind of holds throughout the game. You know, so this kind of isn't really out of the realm of possibility. Maybe Bowser Jr. added these as a fuck you to Mario. You know, yeah, you get your pet Yoshi, but guess what? He can't swim. Get fucked, idiot. We're surrounded by water. We're on an island. You have water on your back. The sweat and flood. Sniper Nozzle. There are several nozzles that Flood comes with, like some sort of cheap hair trimmer you get off Amazon. You know, he's got a rocket nozzle that helps Mario reach great heights. There's the jet nozzle, which gives Mario super speed. Then there's the regular nozzle, which helps Mario float, you know, a little bit. There are planned to be several more nozzles in the game, and we can see from several file names that suggest 3 more variants of nozzles, perhaps more. Some of the nozzles can actually be accessed in the game using hacks. The first variant nozzle is known as a dummy nozzle, and from what I gather, it's kind of a developer meme that was left in the game files or something like that. It's because the head on the nozzle is botched and facing the complete wrong way. If you try spraying this nozzle, it'll simply spray right behind Mario, kind of like the jet nozzle, just without the propulsion. This is a pretty funny nozzle, all things considered. If it was actually added into the game as a dev joke and not simply just an error, because, you know, that's a likely possibility as well. R/turn floods head 90 degrees, enter. And then that's just in the game forever. The second variant nozzle is a Yoshi nozzle that is simply a nozzle that has a severed Yoshi head on it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Mario finally got tired of Yoshi dying from his own sweat, so, you know, he finally snapped and cut Yoshi's head off and, you know, kerplunked it right on the end of Flood. The only question I really wonder is, who feels worse in that situation? Is it Yoshi being severed like that, or is it Flood? This nozzle acts very similar to the regular nozzle, but it has a weird vertical ceiling to the water's arc, so you can never shoot it that high. And the last variant nozzle is known as the Sniper Nozzle, and this was supposed to fire Flood's water at 100 times the speed of the regular nozzle. I couldn't find an image of this variant, so I don't know if there's any real images that actually exist of it. Could you imagine chilling on the top of this big ass tree in Piana Village and sniping fools all day? These nozzles all sound pretty cool, but definitely were not needed in the final game, especially the Sniper Nozzle. I really like the idea of Mario using 50 cal rain as bullets, but I don't think there's a lot of opportunity to use it in the final game. Delfino Express. Early on in Super Mario Sunshine's conception, there was an idea to connect all the levels using a train system known as the Delfino Express. This was revealed by text left in the Japanese version of the game, and it reveals quite a bit of what this rail system could have actually been. Through the text, we can see actually a bunch of different level names that this strange railway system was going to have stops at. If we take a look at some of these, we can easily start matching them up with corresponding levels from the final game. But interestingly enough, Pinna Park is located in the list, which is a bit odd considering Pinna Park was one of the only places in Sunshine that wasn't landlocked. So this may mean there was plans to have a bridge out to Pinna Park, or maybe the park wasn't always located on a separate island. Another interesting fact this list of levels reveals is that maybe at one point Serena Beach and Hotel Delfino weren't the same level, as there is a station for Serena Beach and Hotel Delfino Exterior, which in the final game is the same place. There's also a stop for an island known as the Lighthouse Island, which probably just means it was the lighthouse located in the plaza, but it was going to be on a smaller separate island. There's also text files in the game that would reveal Mario would have to pay soul coins to get train tickets to use the train service, and these coins were the ones we talked about last time in the Space World 2001 trailer, the little sun coins. This would have been a pretty cool way to traverse Super Mario Sunshine. Maybe even better than the weird dimensional gravity ripping Mario apart into little particles, only to spit him back out into a whole nother level. Yeah, dude, I'd rather take the train. All aboard, get me the fuck out of there. Layer 7. Hotel La Crima. Hotel La Crima is one of the new stops located in the Delfino Express train code. This level doesn't show up in the final game, and it was supposed to be an entirely unique level.
Quick editor's note here. The levels I'm going to be referring to in this layer, including this one, I refer to them as levels. They could have been uncut levels, but they could have also just been uncut areas. These areas could have just acted as the train stop, not necessarily a larger level. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up real quick. Back to the video.
There isn't much known about the level, since all we really know about it is its existence, which is just some code in the Japanese version of the game. There is, however, a reimagining of what the level could have sort of looked like. This was done using ROM hacks. I'm not sure if this was going to be a sister location to Serena Beach's hotel, or if they had something else in mind for it entirely, but I'm a little bit scared kind of thinking of what this other hotel could have been. I mean, a great way to utilize a hotel is make it haunted, and you know, they already did that one. So what's the other thing they could do with hotels and Mario? Not that. No. Please stop. Warship Island. This can again be found in the Delfino Express code, and again there isn't much way of seeing what this level was supposed to be like. Just from the name, I'd like to assume that this level might have taken place on boats, with other boats shooting at you, you know, Assassin's Creed 4 style. Or it could also be Mario Party 2 minigame situation where you're trying to survive and play a level while one of Bowser's battleships rains hellfire down on Mario. What, you don't think he has that kind of artillery? Dude had a submarine in the late 90s, dude. By this point it's safe to assume he has a couple warships.
What you're seeing is advanced warfare.
Plus, if we use that logic, probably by now Bowser has a few nukes. And that'll be the main enemy in Super Mario Odyssey 2, dude. Nuclear fallout. Manga. Throughout the different Mario games, there was also a series of mangas that were made alongside to show small stories that are pretty similar to the game and their game's plot. This could have been an attempt from Nintendo to get manga audiences more interested in their products, as there were several of these mangas that were made throughout the years. These were outsourced to a company called Futubasha in Japan, and they were responsible not only for Super Mario Sunshine manga, but all of these other Mario-themed mangas. These mangas, while not the most original stories, add small, funny details to the most iconic scenes we know from these games. Take the cutscene where Mario goes to jail in Sunshine. We all know it. We've seen it 1,000 times. Here we can see Mario being a little troll and using FLUDD to flood the toilet and hit the guard with toilet water. While he's none the wiser, he just thinks the toilet's broken. It seems most of these mangas are online and free to read, and I don't know about you, but that sounds like a great Saturday night. Gotta catch up on my Mario lore after all. I want to be loved by you. There are a lot of hidden things in this game's files if you haven't realized yet. A lot of weird things, specifically in the Japanese version of the game. And some text files that was supposed to appear on a signboard are some lyrics from a song by Marilyn Monroe. We all know her, right? The dress on the steam pipe lady. The song in particular is from 1928 and is called I Want to Be Loved by You. The lyrics that appear in the code is as follows. I want to be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I want to be kissed by you alone, I couldn't aspire. Yeah, that's what was on that sign. This is pretty obviously placeholder text that was left in the game. Guys, you ever hear of lorem ipsum? Come on. The Mario Sunshine developers really use this game's backend as a dumping ground. Nah, I'm just playing. This was one of the favorite songs of one of these developers, and they included it for a unique placeholder text, figuring no one would ever see it. I mean, I don't have to be the one to say it, right? This was clearly Miyamoto. Again, let's just say he was a huge fan of the Happy Birthday Mr. President video. Yeah. Foreshadowed by Super Mario 64 ending. Super Mario 64 was one of the biggest hits in the new age of 3D gaming back when it came out, so the hype for the sequel was very real. It wouldn't be for a few years until Nintendo showed off something of substance for the sequel to 64. However, what if I told you Nintendo showed us the sequel to Super Mario 64 in Super Mario 64? What the fuck? That's right, some people believe that in the ending cutscene of Super Mario 64, there is a moment that foreshadows Super Mario Sunshine. This was shown at the end when Mario is about to follow Peach into the castle, but then he stops. What? Turns. What? And looks up at the sun. Yeah, it's a little vague, and you could argue it's a stretch, but I do find it's interesting Nintendo chose to highlight this as the last thing you see before the game ends. This pan could just be showing off the birds flying into the distance for, you know, the cliche Disney ending, but I think there could be some truth to this foreshadowing of Super Mario Sunshine. But I think ultimately this is kind of just a coincidence, because it would be really crazy if Nintendo had already planned out Super Mario Sunshine that much to the point where they could include a foreshadow in the first game before they even released it. It's not impossible, but it's not likely, as Super Mario Sunshine needed quite a few years in the oven before it was even shown, much less to be polished and released. I don't know, what do you guys think? I don't think Nintendo even had the theme down by the time Super Mario 64 was done. Nippon Auto Plushes. I was pretty bad about collecting. I'm usually pretty good nowadays at turning my head at collectibles if I see them out. Like, yeah, if I see some cool piece that's from one of my favorite series or video games, I may pick it up, but I'm definitely not an active collector like I used to be. With all this said, this entry makes me want to change that immediately. There was a line of plush dolls that were made based on Super Mario Sunshine. This wasn't uncommon back in the day, and I remember even having the Super Mario 64 plush with the little wings on his hat. Plushes were much bigger back in the day with the big Beanie Baby Boom, i.e. the Beanie Baby Boomers buying a bunch of Beanie Babies. Jesus. Say that 5 times backwards underwater, then I'll give you the respect you need. But yeah, I feel like this is less common nowadays. Obviously, plushes are still here in a big way, but in a different way. Like, Nintendo isn't pushing many funds to their plush department anymore, you know? They outsourced the Super Mario Sunshine plush game to a company known as Nippon Auto, which is a company that specializes in high quality plushes. They came through with the Mario Sunshine ones too, let me tell you guys. These plushes are regarded as some of the most high quality video game plushes out there. And this is due to things like minuscule detailing. For example, one of the plushes is Mario and his eyes are embroidered. Like, totally useless. You wouldn't ever need embroidered eyes, but they're there. That might not sound that fancy, but there's a lot of small details in this that make it more than your average plush. Like the fact that the plush has more structural integrity to it. You know, you can set this thing up and it'll stand up straight from what I can see. I mean, I even remember my dinky Super Mario 64 plush that I'm pretty sure was just expected to be propped up on Mario's fat gut. These things are extremely high quality, so it's no surprise that they are very hard to get nowadays. These things are really rare. Like, you're lucky if you even run across a listing, much less if you actually win the auction. I gotta say though, these things would be so cool to own, but since they're so rare, I doubt I'll ever be blessed by the plush gods, so... Super Mario Sunshine is a prequel to Luigi's Mansion. This is a super interesting theory that ties in some stuff that we discussed in the first episode. Just to quickly recap, there are several references to Luigi's Mansion, which is another GameCube game that released before Super Mario Sunshine. One of these references is the fact that Egad, a character from Luigi's Mansion, appears in logo form on several of the items in Sunshine, like Flood. This is already a huge connection between the two games, but it goes much deeper. If we take a look over at Luigi's Mansion, we can see a dialogue piece from the main boss in the game, King Boo. This is when he's talking to the painting that Mario is trapped in, and he says, "Hey Mario, the way you plead for help, Mario, I find it so satisfying. Perhaps this is because I remember how much trouble you've caused me in the past." This makes some people believe that this is a direct reference to the King Boo casino fight in Super Mario Sunshine. This would line up with the dialogue box in Luigi's Mansion, since Mario kicks the absolute shit out of the King Boo with peppers in Sunshine, absolutely embarrassing him. "Go home, take the L, dog." And honestly, I'd say King Boo's response is pretty adequate to somebody who threw peppers in your mouth and dunked on you. Some people may discount this theory since King Boo in Super Mario Sunshine's Japanese version is simply called Boss Boo, making them two different characters canonically. I'd say, it still doesn't explain the dialogue box from Luigi's Mansion. What's going on with that?
Hey, it's me again. Just wanted to throw out there is a theory that at the end of Super Mario 64, Bowser died, and King Boo is actually Bowser's ghost. This is tied into the final boss of Luigi's Mansion, where King Boo kind of takes over Bowser's body, and he's clearly still deceased. But this could explain why some people don't believe this theory, because the fact that if King Boo is actually Bowser's spirit, well, of course they would have met in a previous time because, Mario and Bowser, they go way back. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility to debunking this theory, because that's also another theory that's out there. So, yeah.
I think this is a super interesting theory, and I honestly subscribe to it. It makes sense with the more obvious tie between the games with EGAD, so we already knew the games were canonically connected. Therefore, I don't think it's super far-fetched to assume Super Mario Sunshine came first. I don't know, what do you guys think? Layer 8. Mandela Effect. Mandela Effect is a pretty popular idea that people misremember things in large groups. Basically, this is a mix of confirmation bias and misremembering. This usually happens with small details like the fact Berenstain Bears was actually a mob front for the Yakuza to infiltrate Western markets. Oh wait, no, that one was about the fact that people thought it was Stain, not Stein. The Mandela Effect is common, and it has happened for a lot of people with video games in particular, including Super Mario Sunshine. A specific case of Mandela Effect happened to a player on a forum in which they described a completely different intro sequence to the game. Oh god. The goop at Delfino Airstrip was blue and yellow, not pink and orange. Looked more like a goop at Serena's Beach first mission that electrocutes you. There was no piranha plant boss at the airstrip. The whole airstrip prologue was entirely different. Here's how it happened. After the scene on the plane that lands on the airstrip in front of the goop, the whole scene of the Toads and Peach scene with Shadow Mario happens. But instead of Toadsworth telling Mario to find some assistant, it shows Mario touching the group and getting his glove dirty. He cringes. Says, "Whoa, woo!" Then pianos dressed like firefighters are shown running up to the mess. They clean it all up with a hose and run away. Then a shine sprite appears. The cutscene finally ends, and for a brief moment you can control Mario. You can run around the airstrip, but you have to move on. You collect a shine. Then another cutscene triggers, showing cops noticing Mario holding a shine, and immediately book him. Still no flood. Instead of starting at Delfino Plaza, next to the brown goop mess, you start in Mario's prison cell, with the door slightly ajar. Eventually, you approach the exit to the prison, which triggers the cutscene where the cops tell you to clean up the brown goop mess. Cops give you flood during the said cutscene. Whew! It's quite an effect you had. While some of the points I could see how they could have mistaken some things here and there, but the large side cutscene in the prison where the cops give you flood is something that I know just never existed. This could be a case of the player mixing the memory with an intro of a very similar game or show or something like that. I really like the idea of Mario cringing though. It's almost like he was sat down and plopped on one of my videos, huh? Come on. Unused goop pattern. There are things in the game called pollution maps, which basically help store the goop in the game into data maps. It's similar to typical bitmaps, but it's specific to the goop in the game. There are several pollution maps in the game, and many show a map of a level with a white outline on a black background. Most of these levels in the game have these pollution maps, but a few pollution maps found in the game's files aren't tied to anything specific in the game. One of these strange pollution maps can be found in Bianco Hills level. It's hard to explain without just showing it, so here it is. Jump scare warning. Boom. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here either.
One more thing, Eugene, give me that. If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear to fucking God, I will stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
We can see several things in this pollution map, like a piranha plant, a Goomba, and oh yeah, Satan's down there. Cool. Yeah, I don't know what this random XSCP thing is in the pollution map, but it's pretty disturbing. There's no official comment on the pollution map from Nintendo, so we're just left to speculate what this creepy doodle comes from. Maybe this was just an Easter egg, since the devs knew they wouldn't end up using this version of the pollution map, but it's still strange to draw two regular Mario characters, but then immediately switch to a style more akin to scary stories told in the dark. What the fuck is that thing, dude? Have you seen this man in your dreams? If you have, fucking run. Super Mario Sunshine increases altruism. This entry sounds like the typical uneasy aura entry in most of these icebergs, but this time there's actual hard evidence to back it up. There was a study done by different researchers published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. This study was conducted in an effort to prove the same mentality that violent video games make violent people. They kind of flipped that on its head and tested the opposite theory. Those who played more, as they refer to, pro-social games, it would produce more pro-social actions. I'm talking picking up garbage. I'd summarize pro-social as doing something positive in a game. Take for example finishing an arduous day in Power Wash Simulator and collecting your check at the end of the day. That would be an example of pro-social gameplay. It is gameplay that isn't inherently negative, whether it's due to violence or negatively charged objectives. Therefore, researchers tasked these test subjects with playing pro-social games, and Super Mario Sunshine was one of the games that was chosen. This game and Chibi Robo were used as the main testing material, which are both pretty good choices for more positively charged games in my opinion. Both require players to clean and give back to the people in the game for the better. In Super Mario Sunshine, you're going to give back to the community by helping clean up this rancid shit and find the actual perps who did it in the first place. In Chibi Robo, you're cleaning, so that one is a bit more obvious. But these tests netted positive results where people aged from children to young adults showed more positive actions sometime after playing the game. These were tested against players who played more negatively charged games, and there were some differences. This was an extremely interesting study, but of course, I would like to tell you to take it with a grain of salt. If you'd like to read the full study, I will try to remember to link the article below, which goes more into the tests and the result of the tests. I know I feel better after cleaning up the people's messes that I didn't make. You know, that makes me altruistic and totally not violent at all. I don't want to rip my hair out. I don't want to kill that little fucking piece of shit, Bowser son, piece of shit. Because now he's got my my whole vacation tied up. Unused disaster plot. In an interview with Yoshiki Kazuma with Retro Gamer, it is suggested that Super Mario Sunshine was at one point going to be a disaster relief type game. You know, Kojima came out with the Strand type game, now we have the disaster relief type game. Perhaps this was originally going to be a Fallout take on Super Mario Sunshine, and Mario visits the island where they used to test nukes, you know. There's several videos online about that. It would make sense as to why these pianas and Nokis look so fucked up, by the way. Like, I was legit joking about nukes earlier for Mario Odyssey 2, but this could have been what this final game was, post-nuke. Instead of collecting shines like in the final game, the plot was originally supposed to be Mario pushing back invading enemies before attacking the source of the pollution. So it's not actually nukes, it's just the pollution coming in a different way. There is some text in the code for the game that suggests Mario was also going to be tasked with helping out pianas and other NPCs with different tasks, many of which consisted of finding their loved ones, because you know, when disaster hits, people scatter. Even though this isn't super far from what's actually going on in the final game, it feels like this could have been an interesting take on a Mario story. Gyroid in the waiting room. There's a small waiting room when you first arrive on Isle Delfino at the airstrip. You won't be able to access it immediately when you first arrive because you need the jet nozzle to get inside. Inside there are a few small knickknacks here and there's not much in the room, but there was stuff that was cut out that I find pretty interesting. There was going to be a Gyroid located in this waiting room, as there was a sprite of a Gyroid that can be found in Super Mario Sunshine's files. This would have been a pretty cool little Easter egg for those who knew what it was, but even for those who don't, you know, it kind of fits the theming. However, due to something like time constraints or other strange reasons, this was cut from the final game. But I really love references when they're done like this, and this one would have definitely been a cool one to have in the final game. How else am I supposed to wrap up and save my game now? I'm gonna lose all my shines, then Resetti's gonna bitch me out the next time I boot it up. Il Delfino is inside Mario's mind. There's a pretty wild-ass theory on a GameFAQs forum that suggests Il Delfino and all of the events in Super Mario Sunshine took place completely in Mario's mind. The basic proof behind this theory is the breakdown of the residents of the Il Delfino. You're gonna really have to stick with me on this one. Both the pianas and Nokis share similar characteristics to Mario, like the piana's big noses and some of them having mustaches that resemble Mario. The theory states that Mario has feelings of being more reserved while also showing exaggerated emotion. The reserved state can be connected more towards the Noki's way of living. They live in more quiet, reserved areas and have a more spiritual nature. While pianas are a more commercial group, constantly importing fruits and conducting business. I think this is a bit of a stretch though, because there isn't a lot in the evidence drawer. Like, basically this theory is just based on the fact that Mario kinda looks like a piana and likes to sit alone with a quiet book at the end of the long day, like a Noki, and that's pretty much it. I like to think Il Delfino takes place completely in Egad's head, actually, and that's what he does sitting on his ass all day while he sends Luigi out to do all his dirty work in Luigi's Mansion. Unused Multiplayer. I couldn't find much on this entry, but this Iceberg creator claims that there's code within the game that suggests there was a scrapped multiplayer mode. This mode would have featured 2 players where one plays as Mario and the other plays as Shadow Mario. And since these 2 are enemies in the game, it suggests that maybe it was a versus mode. Perhaps this is going to be a simple chase mode throughout the game's worlds. But this could have been something deeper, or it could have even been just the full game in multiplayer, which would have been super dope. The closest we get to this nowadays is a multiplayer mod for the game, but even that I feel like would be more limited, as Super Mario Sunshine is meant to be a single player game. At least this was more ambitious than the Luigi's Balloon World addition to Super Mario Odyssey, because that shit was a snooze fest. Scrat Mario FPS. An internal document was leaked from Nintendo that contained some interesting information that was about a scrapped Mario first-person shooter game. This is kind of wild to think about, as Mario is typically a more family-friendly game, but at one point Nintendo was fully considering making a Mario FPS for the Wii. This was likely due to the pressures of games like Call of Duty and other FPS games becoming more and more popular. However, the project never came to fruition, and the only proof that exists of the game is a file which contains a black and white photo of Delfino Plaza. This was likely used as a test level for this project and was pulled directly from the old Super Mario Sunshine assets. The only new thing they added onto the project was a reticle that can be seen in the top left corner. My question is, what exactly is Mario supposed to be shooting here? I mean, was this an alternate ending where Mario was fed up, being blamed for the goop, and finally snapped? Lucky though, someone warned most of the residents in Delfino Plaza, as I've never seen this place more fucking dead than in this screenshot. Well guys, that was the end of the Super Mario Sunshine Iceberg. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and make sure to subscribe if you're new. If you notice anything I might have gotten wrong throughout, please feel free to comment with correct information down below, and I will either respond or pin it. Thanks for all the new people who have been subscribing recently and viewing my content. Not gonna lie, it's a bit overwhelming having so many people watching my content now, but that just makes me want to strive to do better shit on YouTube. So anyways, before I ramble on too much, I will be tackling the final part of the Mario Oddities Iceberg very soon, so stay tuned for that. And until then, thanks for watching.